Everyone, we see. Go ahead and we'll get started. All right. So hopefully everyone can now see my screen. Again, my name is Lillian Barnes. I am the Grants Online Operations Manager and Lead Trainer. Before I get going, I'm going to turn it over to Bernadette Grafton, who is the EDA liaison to Grants Online. And Bernadette, you go ahead and say some opening remarks, and then we'll go from there.
Great. Thanks, Lillian. Hi, everyone. As Lillian said, my name is Bernadette Grafton. I work in our headquarters office with EDA in Washington, D.C. I am the Grants Online point of contact for EDA. So whenever anyone in our regional offices has questions, they often reach out to me for any recommendations on how to resolve their problem. And I often work with Lillian to resolve some of the issues that we have, making sure that we're providing correct guidance to both staff and grantees. So I'm really excited to see so many of you on here today. We had a big push to get as many grantees as possible on this webinar because there are a number of things that we've noticed to be recurring issues with our grantees. So we want to make sure that you all get the training that you need. This training specifically is focused on some closeout issues and how to navigate Grants Online, how to understand where a task is. We'll be going through a lot of workflow items just to get you a little bit more familiar with the system so that it's easier for you to understand and to use. I understand that you have numerous grant systems that you're using for your various federal awards, and you may only get into Grants Online a couple of times a year. So I understand the frustration and not knowing how to exactly use each and every system, but we want to make sure this is as easy as possible. So that's why we are doing this today. We do have other resources available on the Grants Online training page. You can actually see where to find that right now on Lillian's screen. It's at the bottom under training. There's a lot of resources there. Yeah, thank you. There are a lot of resources there, including past webinar recordings. We've made sure to clearly label those recordings so that you know exactly what's included in them. So if you have a specific issue, you can just go directly to that webinar and know at what time frame within the webinar you can find the questions that you may be looking for. But again, I'm here as a resource both to you all and to our staff. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Again, Bernadette Grafton, and I will be here on this webinar just to provide EDA-specific guidance whenever needed, but I will remain mostly silent the rest of the time. Thank you all. Go ahead, Lillian.
Well, Bernadette, this is going to be interactive. I'm going to probably get a couple of award numbers from you like we did last time to use during the webinar. I do want to, since you mentioned the training area, I want to go ahead and do that right away. So again, from the Grants Online login screen, right here at the bottom of the middle, there's a link that says Grants Online Training. And so I'm going to right click on that link and open it up in a new tab over here. And it takes us over to our publicly available page. You do not have to have a Grants Online account to access this particular page. And also, I do want to mention that we're in the process of upgrading this page. So just to make sure that you are aware, the Grants Online Program Management Office that runs this software, we are an office underneath a different bureau of the Department of Commerce. We are part of NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. NOAA runs the Grants Online system, and EDA is one of our customers. So you will see our website, it's going to look NOAA-centric because we have to conform to a NOAA website policy. And so the new page, and if I get a chance, if we have enough time, we're going to give you sort of a peek into what the new page is going to look like. We'll do that towards the end. And I have one of my staff members, Yvette, is on the webinar with me. She's going to be monitoring your questions and making sure that we answer as many as possible. Any questions that we cannot answer during the course of this particular webinar, we'll try to get them to you afterwards. So Yvette, please remind me towards the end to try, if we have time, to look at the new website. So on this training page right here, if you scroll down, there's a section for each one of our categories of users. And one right here in the middle on this page right here, grant recipient training resources, is the link that Bernadette was referring to. And on this page, number 4 are past webinars that we have already recorded for our grantees. So as you see, there are already 3 webinars out there, pre-recorded webinars that have been recorded in the past. And we are recording this particular webinar also, and we hope to get it up on our website sometime in the future. It does take some time to do some editing on the webinar before we post it, so it won't be immediate, but it is our plan to post this particular webinar on our website sometime in the future. Okay, so let's look at our agenda for today. The first thing on our agenda is reading a grants file. And you can think of a grants file as just basically the holder, a folder that holds all of the information that is the official information corresponding to any one particular grant award. So for any one grant award number, every grant award number will have a grants file. It's sort of the home page in Grants Online to find information for your grant award. So I'm going to go back to our login screen here. And I may be moving between logging in as a knower user and logging in as an EDA user. It just has to do with some of the setup work that we have in this system, because I'm not in our production system at this moment. We may go to production later on, or we may not. But right now, as you see up here, it says Grants Online Training. This page does look exactly like our production website, but it is indeed our training website. This site is a copy of our production as of, I believe it's about September or October of last year. We every so often we do what we call cloning our data out of our production system. We put it over into our training system and our test system so that we can use that data for things like this, for webinars and demos, and to test various functions that we're trying to implement in the system. So in this particular version of our training system, we actually do have awards as of whatever their status was as of last October, around that time frame. You know, since then, we've been adding in our own test and our own training awards into the system. So it's sort of a combination of what used to be in production at that moment, plus some additional test and training awards that we put in. So I'm going to log in. I'm going to start by logging in as a recipient, and I'm going to start with a NOAA recipient. We'll flip over to EDA a little bit later, but I do know that I have some awards set up under this particular recipient account. So I do want to start by logging in using this particular user. And right away, one of the things I want to point out to you, you will probably won't even notice it, but we have had a mandate within the Department of Commerce to update our notice to users here. And so what you see right now in training is this is actually different from what we have in production right now. We will be rolling out this new notice in our production system this upcoming weekend. So again, you may not notice that there's much of a difference. You can't see it. It doesn't jump out on the page, but there is a slight difference in the wording here. All right, so I am logged in to Grants Online as a recipient user. And the first thing on our agenda again is reading a grants file. So how do we get to our grants file? We just want to get to our grants file. We don't really have anything in our inbox to do. We just want to get to the grants file itself. In order to do that, we would start with this tab called the Awards tab. From the Awards tab, we would click on Search Awards. Now from this screen, you can actually just hit your search button and all of the awards that you currently have access to would come up. So you see it's a bunch right now on this under this account because we use this for our training, but most of you as recipients, EDA recipients of using Grants Online would probably have no more than 3 or 4 awards at one point in time. So if you don't know the award number, don't worry about it. Just click the search button and all of your awards will come up. Once your awards come up, you will see possibly awards with 2 different statuses on the search results. And from this particular one, you can see a bunch that say accepted, and then you'll see another set that says pending acceptance. And these are from a training class we've just done fairly recently. Accepted means that the grantee, and specifically the authorized recipient for this particular grant award, has gone into Grants Online and gone through the steps needed to accept the award and make it officially co-sign this particular award. Any awards that come up with the status of pending acceptance means that they're sitting in that grantee's inbox and waiting for them to go through those steps. We're not going to go through the steps of accepting an award right now in this particular webinar. We've done it a couple of times in the past, so if you need to see those steps, please review some of the other webinars that were previously recorded. But this one, we want to actually focus on a grants file that has already been accepted. So I'm going to click on this one right here that ends in 007. I hope this is a good one to use. Let's take a quick look at it. Yeah, this will be a good one to start. Okay, so here's our grants file right here. This is the grant award number. In this case, again, we are logged in with using a NOAA number, so it starts with NA, but your awards will all start with ED. The first 2 letters of the grant award in Grants Online indicate the Department of Commerce Bureau that has given out that award. So all of your awards will start with ED. The next 2 digits indicate the fiscal year in which the award was signed by the grants officer. The next 3 digits indicate for you the region, the EDA region that has processed your award. Some of you may have awards that were processed under EDA headquarters, not in a particular region. In that case, it will say HDQ. The next 3 digits indicate what we call a CFDA number, the Catalog of Federal Domestic Assistance. Every grant program within the federal government is associated with a CFDA number, and that number is partially represented in our grant award number here. And then the last 4 digits in any Grants Online grant award are system-generated digits that just show the sequence in which awards have been made for that particular fiscal year in that region. All right, let's scroll down on the grants file. There's a box that, well, of course, you see the ID of the grants file. This is a system-generated ID. It probably won't mean anything and not be useful to you as grantees. It is useful to the Grants Online Program Management Office, which is my office, as we may have to go into the database and go into the background and identify this award, this number is important to us. But for most of the time, we're going to be keying in on the grants number that starts, that you see right here beside the word grants file. This is showing a status of accepted. So again, this has gone through the steps already for the grants officer to, not the grants officer, the representative, authorized representative to accept the award. Once that's done, this is a drop-down box that has some generic actions that can now take place on the grant award once it's been accepted. We'll come back to these drop-down options a little later. Let's keep going down the screen. There's a widget here that says attachments. I don't think we've attached anything here, but this attachments section is available for our federal folks to add attachments. Notice there's no plus sign for our grantees. So the grantees cannot add attachments to that section, but our federal folks can add attachments. Any attachments that the federal folks add, as long as they did not mark them for internal use only, they will be visible to the recipients. And then we'll see a big gray box with a lot of high-level information about the grant itself, including the period of performance here, who the program of. Now, one thing I do want to point out again, because this system was written originally for the Bureau NOAA, the terminology that you might see on the screen is NOAA-centric, and so it's the way NOAA's business process has been set up. EDA came into the system in 2016, and it's using the system, but partially underneath the NOAA business process. So there's some language that EDA uses, such as project officer, that we don't have written into Grants Online because that wasn't the original way Grants Online was set up. So what you're going to see on this screen where it says grant information, you'll see two names, a program officer and a grant specialist. For EDA, many times, probably 90% of the time, those two names are the same name because in EDA, one person operates with both of those roles. For NOAA, these are always two different people. So that's why you see the two different roles on the screen. And for EDA, again, you'll probably see the same name, but it was written for the way NOAA operates. And so for NOAA, those are two different people. Then you'll see the federal funding and the non-federal funding. So if there is a cost share or matching amount, you'll see them both on the screen. There's an indication as to whether this is a multi-year award or not. Multi-year means that the application project period covered more than 1 year, and the funds that are going to be given to the grant recipient are going to be given out in increments over those years. So if you have an award that spans, for instance, 3 years, and you get all of your money up front in the first year, this will say multi-year no. It will indicate that this is not a multi-year award, even though the project period spans multiple years, and that is because all of the funds were obligated at one time. A multi-year award means that the funds that were requested on the application are going to be released over a period of time. So probably you're going to get a certain amount in year 1, and then another amount in year 2, and another amount in year 3. Those will say yes, where it says multi-year. Then we have an organization name and whether or not it's ASAP. Most of EDA, I believe, gets set up at ASAP. This particular recipient that we're using, in this case, it says ASAP no, but EDA sets most of your recipients up using ASAP. ASAP is the system that you use for payment to draw your funds down. ASAP is a department of the Treasury system. It is not run by the Department of Commerce. It's not run by NOAA or EDA. It's actually a Department of the Treasury system. And so there is an interface between Department of Commerce and Treasury to move money back and forth between the two departments to make sure that you have funds available to draw down your grant funds once an award is made. So that's a behind-the-scene process that happens during the course of processing your application and making it into a grant award. We have to go through a process of moving funds over to the Department of the Treasury so you have them available to draw down when you're ready to use ASAP. This is an indication internally in our system, and hopefully all of you have no on there that you're not a risk recipient. It's just an indication that there's probably a little bit more intense monitoring of a particular grant award if that says yes. DBA means doing business as. So if you have set up at sam.gov in your profile, if you have a doing business as name, we will pull it into Grants Online and it will be shown here. There's your project title. And this is important information right here, the frequency of when you have to submit your financial reports and your progress reports. And we'll get into those a little bit later. Again, this one says it's not ASAP, but I'm going to show a different one that is ASAP so that we can actually see what is more typical for an EDA award. Then towards the bottom, you're going to see a date that says final reports due on. This date right here is what we call the grantee closeout date. It's not the closeout date for the federal government, but when an award is made, up here you see the project period, the award period from the start date to the end date. This date down here where it says final reports due on, this date should be 90 days after the date here, which is the project end date right here. So you have 90 days after the award expires to complete all of your closeout activities. That includes submitting your final progress report, submitting your final financial reports, and before you submit your final financial reports, you should have gone into ASAP, draw down all of your funds that you need to use to make those last-minute payouts on invoices or whatever you have to use them for. After you finish drawing down all the money that you're actually going to use on the award, then you submit your final financial report, and all of that information should come into EDA by this date right here that says final reports due on. If you need more time to submit your final reports, there is an option that can be used to extend that time, and we will talk about that a little bit later on in the webinar. Closeout date here, you're going to see NA on most of them because that is when the federal government, in this case EDA, completes their closeout process on the particular grant award that they're processing. All right, at the very bottom, PIPD, that means Principal Investigator or Project Director, and you should see a name of whoever has that role in your organization. All right, Yvette, I'm going to stop before I go any further. Do you have any questions on the chat? If you have any questions, I meant to mention this at the top of the webinar. I'm sorry I forgot to do that, but if you have any questions, please feel free to use your question or chat feature to submit questions. Everybody, all of our webinar participants are on mute only mode, so we won't be able to hear you audibly, but feel free to submit questions and we will be monitoring your questions as we go along. Okay. Okay. Yvette was mentioning also to me, if it's a very detailed question, we're not going to try to answer it right away. We'll respond a little bit later. Okay. Is there anything for me to respond to right now? Nothing at this moment. Okay. So let's keep going down our grants file. The next section you see on the grants file says sub-documents. And usually the sub-documents are sort of child documents to the main grants file. In this case, we have 3 subdocuments, and all grants files will have these 3 subdocuments. And then as other actions take place, they may have more. The award package, and again, to get to any of these documents, you're going to see an ID number, and these ID numbers are hyperlinks that send you to that next document, that particular document. So the award package is actually just a quick way to get to what we call the award document. So in this case, there's no actions, there's no blue box with actions. So we're going to click on the link that says go to the details. And you should find a document that looks like this. Your award document is going to have a little bit of information at the top in the header box. And then it's going to have what we would call the cover sheet of your award package that has been sent to you. There's going to be information about yourself as a grantee and about the amount of the award period, and then down underneath there are going to be several links that have information that are going to be pertinent to your grant award. All of our grant awards that are made in Grants Online to any Department of Commerce bureau, which all of them are that are in Grants Online, they're all going to have the top link activated for you to look at. Those are our Department of Commerce terms and conditions. The next 2 links will depend upon whether or not you're doing research. If you are, the next 2 links will be activated. If you're not, they will not be. Then we have a document that may or may not apply to your particular bureau, but if EDA, Bernadette, does EDA have a document that shows up on this one right here, the bureau specific? I can't remember whether or not EDA has a bureau.
We usually attach.
Yours are all attached. Okay, so you may not have anything underneath this link right here. We'll check that when we look at an EDA award. You may also not even have anything on this link that says specific award conditions. That is because of the way that EDA generates your specific award conditions. They generate them outside of the Grants Online system, and then they add them as attachments under this attachment link. So you may not see anything where any link that has no data for you to look at, it just won't be activated. Just like this, it'll just be in just gray without a hyperlink. Every award that we make in Grants Online does have this 2 CFR Part 200 link activated. That is across the board to all federal grants. It's called Uniform Guidance for all of federal grants. The next one, again, may or may not be activated. In this case, it's not. Department of Commerce pre-award notification. Again, it is activated for all of our awards. And then the last 2 are dependent upon the type of award. As you're going down, once an award has been accepted, we generate a PDF file, and the system will automatically attach that file to the document. And this is basically a PDF version of the page that we're on that shows the date of both the grants officer's signature and the authorized representative's signature. And then again, also, if there are any specific award conditions generated by the system will create a PDF file of that and attach them here. If there are any additional attachments from EDA, they will also show up in this section right here. Okay, if you want to generate a PDF file of this page, you can click on this button right here and it will generate the file. Let me cancel off here. And I want to go back to my grants file, but I'm on my award package. So how do I navigate back to my grants file from this page? There are 2 different ways you can do that. One is to scroll down towards the bottom of the page where you see associated documents. Associated documents are the parents. Remember, the subdocuments are the child documents of whatever page you're on. Associated documents would be parent documents of that page. So you can scroll down to the bottom and click on the grants file there. But also, at the top of the page, you will notice that we have these black links up here that we call breadcrumbs. So as you're navigating through Grants Online, you will see these black links appearing at the top of your page. And you can always use those to go back to a previous page that you already visited in the system. So we have gotten through the award package. We talked about specific award conditions. If there are any that were generated using Grants Online, you can generate a report, an overall report, using this particular link. The special thing about that particular link is that if your award has multiple amendments and each amendment has its own specific award conditions, if they were generated using the system's feature for specific award conditions, they would be consolidated in this report here. If they were just simply attached as attachments, then they would not show up in this report. All right, then you're going to start seeing something, at least one award file, and you may have multiple award files. Each award file indicates a funded action that from the federal government. It may also indicate a non-funded action that was processed as an amendment. So you can tell whether it's funded or not by over here on this column that says federal funding. Okay, now award file 0 is the initial award. So all grant awards, when you get them, it's going to have award file 0. If there are multi-years, for instance, if we've gone into the second year and we've given you an amendment for the second year, you're going to see another award file and we'll have the next consecutive number. You know, it would possibly be award file 1, and that award file would contain all of the documents associated with processing that second year action that would release additional funds to you. Okay, as we're going down the grants file, you'll see another section, associated documents. And for the grants file, these are not actually parent documents as it is for other ones. These are other documents that are indeed linked to the grants file, and they are official part of this particular grant award. Anytime you process what is called an award action request, which you initiate, by the way, from this drop down at the top, create award action request. Anytime you do that, you will create a document that will be attached to the grants file in this section here. So as you see, we have a couple of them that we've done on this particular training award. Anytime that you do those ASAP drawdown requests, they will all get attached underneath this section here. Federal financial report. You will see those, your SF-425s, all created underneath this section here called financial reports. And then your progress reports will show up at the very bottom of your grants file. So all of your progress reports will be generated and attached at that point. Now, let me just talk a little bit about your financial and your progress reports. Those are what we call placeholders. The system will generate a placeholder for your reports to be uploaded, and the placeholders are generated after the reporting period is over. So after this period end date, the next day the system will create the placeholder. That is very important to know, because right now there is a little bit of confusion about progress reports in particular, and the way that Grants Online creates the placeholders when we create them and the due dates that we put on them. So please just bear in mind that we are talking internally between Grants Online Program Management Office and EDA so that we can make sure that we are trying to accommodate the EDA business process. But there are some cases in which we are currently not accommodating the EDA business process. So more to come on that in the future. But just for right now, please note that whatever the frequency is that is indicated up here in this section, in this gray box, that's the frequency that we will be generating a placeholder for your progress reports. The financial reports are automatically generated on a semi-annual basis. There's one that's generated right at the beginning of October for the reporting period that ends on September 30th. And then there's another one that's generated right at the beginning of April for the reporting period that ends on March 30th. And so financial reports are not dependent upon the start date of the award. They all follow that particular schedule where they have reporting periods that end on either September the 30th or March 31st. Now, there is one caveat to that, and that would be for very special awards, and I don't know if EDA has them. If you're on a quarterly reporting basis, then there will be 2 extra reports in the middle, but for the most part, the financial reports are on that schedule. All right, so that is the grants file. One of the things I want you to see on the grants file is that not only can you see, just by looking at the grants file, you can see the amounts of your actions, you can also see the status of where your various actions are. So in this particular case, for these particular documents, we have some statuses that these award action requests are with the grant specialist. Now remember, for EDA, EDA does not have necessarily a separate grants specialist from your project officer. So if you see the words grants specialist, or if you see the word program officer, those are usually the same person in EDA. So whether the status says program officer or grant specialist, that is your project officer in EDA, and that's who would have that particular action based on the status that you would see there. Bernadette, let's switch over to an EDA award. And let me just do one thing here. I want to see if I have an EDA award first by this particular grant, under this particular grantee. Let's see if I have one generated. So what I'm doing here, these are the award numbers. I'm just going to click on award number. And no, they're all NOAA awards. I haven't done any in training to this particular grant recipient for EDA. So I'm going to log off here. And Bernadette, do you remember the number that we used last time?
Yeah, I can pull it up real quick.
Okay, if you could pull that up for me. Let me get your pen. And I need to also know the grantee's name on that one.
So it's Smart Growth America is the recipient name. The award number, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm not typing it in yet, I'm just writing it down.
All right. ED16 HDQ 303 0042.
0042. Before I pull that up in our training system, I need to just touch bases with you. Is it okay to actually use that one? Because it is partially a real award. But it's okay to use that one for the webinar?
Yeah, they're in closeout, but yeah, you can use it if that works.
Okay, all right, good. And who was the authorized recipient on that one?
Oh, Chris Zimmerman.
Zimmerman? Chris Zimmerman, that's right, Chris Zimmerman. So maybe Chris is on here. If Chris is on the webinar, I just want to let you know we do not know your password. When we move our data into the training system, we wipe out all the production passwords, so we cannot log into production as you, but we can log into the training system because we changed the passwords in the training so that there's something that our internal group can use as we're testing and doing training. So I'm going to go ahead and log in as Mr. Zimmerman, using our own Grants Online PMO password. So I'm logged in again to our training system. I'm going to go to the Awards tab. I'm going to click on Search Awards. I'm going to put that award number in. This time I'm actually going to put the award number in as opposed to just hitting the search bar. I'm going to click on Search here. And here's that award number. Notice on this particular one, we have forced this award to be expired. And we used it actually on a previous webinar to show our internal staff, our federal staff, about some of the closeout processes. So we're going to show the grantees, you guys, what that award looks like as it's going through the closeout process. So let me go ahead and click on the link. Notice the ED in this award number here. And this is more typical of what you would see for an EDA award. In this case, this one is actually on quarterly reports for the SF425. So remember, I told you some of them actually are on quarterly reports, and then others are on most are on semi-annual. This one happens to be on a quarterly basis. You may also wonder what this message here that says non-interface, what does that mean? Non-interface awards in Grants Online, that is really more for our federal people to understand. It has to do with how we move data between our grants system, which is Grants Online, and our Department of Commerce accounting system, which we call CBS. You may actually see in some of the Grants Online advisories references to CBS, Commerce Business Systems. That is the Department of Commerce accounting system that we use to do our financial management of all of the financial transactions in the Department of Commerce. For NOAA, NOAA's grants are interface between our grant system, Grants Online, and our financial system, which means that we actually have built a mechanism to automatically move data between the grant system and the financial system. That interface is only for NOAA. It's only set up for NOAA. So EDA awards are not interface. We don't automatically move data between our grant system and our financial system. And because of that, there is additional manual data entry that must be done during the course of processing a grant action by our NOAA finance staff, because NOAA finance supports the Economic Development Administration when it comes to the financial transactions that you guys produce. So that's what non-interface means. It's more of something that's important to us on the federal side, but I just want to explain that to you. Okay, so let's take a look at this particular grant award. Notice that we have a few additional award files here. So that's showing that we have some additional actions. We see one is a non-funded action here, and one is a funded action. So we go down on here. We'll see several ASAP drawdown requests. And so this is, again, the type of award action request that you must submit when you need to be reimbursed for the funds that you are using on your grant project. Every time you're ready to reimburse yourself, there's a process that we have also discussed in a previous webinar. So I do invite you to go look at those webinars. We're not going to get into that process on this one, but we do go into extensive steps of going through how to do an ASAP drawdown request in one of our previous webinars. Let's look again at the status that we see here on some of these ASAP drawdown requests. We see a lot that are approved. In fact, all of the ASAP drawdown requests have been approved, and that is because this particular award is in what we call an expired state, and we went through some mechanisms to make sure that all of our statuses were approved. However, there are some statuses that are not approved. So when an ASAP drawdown request is first submitted to the federal government and it comes into the agency, which is EDA, the person that receives it is our program officer. Remember, the program officer and the grant specialist wear the same hats in EDA in most cases, but the first person, the first role that receives the ASAP drawdown request when you submit it is the program officer. So over here in the status, you will see program officer actions. If it says not started, that means it's in their inbox and they haven't started working on it yet. Once they start working on that particular activity, you're going to see something that says in progress, okay? And then it will tell you who is working on it and where it is. Remember, I talked about a way to extend this final reports date. There's a way to extend that versus a way to extend the actual project. There's two ways to extend your grant award. One to extend the grant award and one to extend your closeout. If you need to extend the grant award, that must be done before this particular date hits. You have to submit a no-cost extension, and that is an award action request that is available for you before the project period expires. Once the project period expires, if you need more time to work on the closeout activities, there is an action called the closeout ASAP draw extension to closeout award action request. Let me see. We don't see that here because we've already started the closeout activities on the federal side here. But you should have an extension to closeout award action request available to you after. It'll be available after this date because the award would have expired. So it would be after this date right here, but before this date right here. We also urge you that if you know you need extension to closeout, you cannot wait until the last day to submit that. You should submit it before 10 days before the end of the final report's due date, okay? So please just kind of anticipate as things are going along. If you think you're going to need more time, anticipate that you may want to submit an extension to closeout. All right, let's see. So we're going down here. You will see on this particular one, because it's in closeout already, we've put it into a phase to be ready for closeout. You see that all of these statuses are accepted. However, if you have not yet submitted a financial report or a progress report, the status will be different depending upon where it is and the time frame in the calendar based on when the report is due. From the period end date until the due date, the status will say not delinquent until you submit it. Once you submit the report, the status changes from not delinquent to submitted. If you don't submit the report in time, the status will change from not delinquent to delinquent. Once this report has been submitted to the federal agency, the status will change from submitted to accepted after the federal agency has accepted your report. So you can watch how it's progressing, looking at the status based on what the status says. It'll let you know where you are in the process. Now, I just remembered that I'd actually created some, what we call some polls, some little test questions. And so we're going to, let me bring up a couple of those questions now, because I've been doing a lot of talking and I really should have done this a little bit earlier, but let's just see if I have explained things well enough. Let's see what poll that we have that we can, let's see. Let's do this. I'm going to pull out this particular question. Let me launch this poll and let's see. Do you see the poll on your screen? All right, good. So this is a quick question to see if you guys know. So far, it's coming along. We got people that, most of the people have the right answer. That's great. We'll let this stay open for 1 minute and collect some answers here. We're about 30 seconds in right now, about 30 more seconds, and then we'll close out our poll. So this question is asking you, how long after the end of the project period, that means the end of the grant is over, start date and end date, the end date is finished, how long at the end do you have to submit your progress reports, those final closeout documents? All right, 59 seconds, 1 minute. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. And the answer is 90 days. We had a great majority of the folks that said 90 days, so thank you very much. You were paying attention to that particular poll question. All right, let's see. Let me ask this particular question right here. So, let me launch this one. And you have, I'll give another minute on this one. A reimbursement request, again, shows up in Grants Online as ASAP drawdown request. That's what it looks like in Grants Online. And so we want to know, what does the status look like when it's been successfully submitted? Okay. And this is not a financial report. It is not a progress report. This is going to be under the section that says associated documents. All right, we're on 45 seconds. "56 seconds, 57, 8, 9, and 1 minute. All right, I'm going to close out this poll. So this one, it looks like I need to do a little bit more explanation, because only 11% actually got the answer correct. When you have successfully submitted your ASAP drawdown request right here, the status is going to say grants specialist ASAP actions not started. Grant specialist actions not. It comes into our grants specialist. Not, this is one of the few award action requests that come into the grant specialist and not the program officer. So we'll go back over that and we'll see if we can find an actual grant award that shows that. We'll review that a little bit later. Do you have one? I can provide that
when you're ready. When you're ready, I do. Yes.
Okay. Do you want to switch? We can switch over. I'd like to show that one. So let's switch. Is it same? Is it Denver?
No,
is it, so okay, I need to log off. Okay, I'll log off. And do you want me to go in from the federal side or as the recipient?
The recipient.
Okay. What's the name?
shoot. Trying to remember which one it is. We have two. John Schwabich.
If you logged in as yourself onto that award, go to the manage recipient users or personnel.
Okay, so we're gonna log in as Leo Del Cid. So do you need the email address or no?
No, I just need the last name because it's usually first initial, last name. So Leo is it starts with an L.
Yep, Leo is the first name, and then the last name is DEL. Space. CID.
CID. DELCID. We don't put the space in the username, so let me see if that'll work.
Okay.
DELCID. Now let's see if we can log in as that person. All right, awesome. All right, I'm just going to go to awards. I'm going to search awards. I'm not going to put an award number in. I'm going to click search. And there is only one award number here. So let's take a look at this particular one. Let's scroll down here. And here is the status that we were looking for. When you send the award, the ASAP drawdown request, which is also known as your reimbursement request, when it first comes in, when you have successfully submitted it and has first come in to the federal agency, in this case the EDA, this is the status you will see: grants, specialist actions not started. Okay, and what I'll do is I will quickly pull up the workflow. We have what is called in Grants Online process maps. And let me just show you the process map for this particular action. So I am launching this from the recipient training page, and we're going to look at process map number AAR-5, ASAP drawdown requests. So let's take a look at that one. And let's see what it is, 4, 5, right here. Let me try to make that fit on the page. All right, I hope that is viewable by you. I wanted to see you to see the entire process map because this one is very, very important that you understand this process map and what is involved. We did go through it again. We went through it extensively in a couple of our previous bureaus, but videos. But I do want to go through it one more time here just to make sure that you understand what is going on with this. This particular award action request will be initiated by the business person within your grantee organization. They're going to click on Create ASAP Drawdown Request in Grants Online. Let me just flip over here, and that would be a drop-down action. Once you click Create Award Action Request and Submit, it will be this link right here, ASAP Drawdown Request. Okay? Once you do that, then you would fill out the page with the required information. The business person will also attach a SF-270 that they have gotten off of the EDA website, or you may already have one within your agency. Fill that out with the required information and attach it to that screen in Grants Online. Once you've done that, you would then forward either to the authorized representative, or depending upon if the business person has a particular role in Grants Online, they may be able to submit it directly to the agency. Once it comes into the agency, the first person in the agency that receives that particular action is the grants specialist. So that is why in Grants Online, let me go back here. I'm going to return to main so that you can see the status here. In Grants Online, there will be a status of grant specialist ASAP actions not started. Okay, so that is this particular step right here, they have gotten a task. Once that person does their internal review and moves it on, hopefully they will accept the request. Then two tasks get generated. A task goes to funds, but also a notice goes to the authorized representative at your agency. I'm sorry, little duplicate there. I'm not quite sure what happened there. But once that notice goes to that person, they will know that it's okay for your financial person to go into asap.gov. Notice they're going now, all of this is done in Grants Online. This is the point at which you would go into asap.gov and put in the request at ASAP. You've already put in a request to us in Grants Online. Another request goes into ASAP. Once that request goes into ASAP, it's going to sit there until this person goes into ASAP and releases those funds right there. So that's why it's important for you to understand this process and understand all the players that are involved. Your request first starts in Grants Online, comes into your project officer. In this case, in Grants Online, it's called the grant specialist. It will come into that person. That person will do their internal review, and they will indicate whether they accept it or not. They may have to go back and forth with you until they get it to a state where it is acceptable. Once it's accepted, again, a task goes to the person in NOAA Finance, who will eventually release those funds, and an indication goes to the recipient to go into ASAP and put in your request. Once that's there and the NOAA Finance person sees it, they will then release the funds and you will get the money to your account. So that's important. I wanted to make sure you understood that process. We're not going to go through a demo in Grants Online because it was done in a previous video.
So there are a couple of questions.
Yes, that's why I wanted to do that. Let's see if are there any questions that we can respond to.
How do you give the business official authorization to submit the ASAP request directly without going through the authorized rep?
Okay, very good. There is a document that we have, and I'm going to refer you to go back to our training page, and we have a reference guide right here. The person to give that role is set up as the recipient administrator in your office. And let me show you how you find out who that person is. From the grants file, if you're not that person yourself, you can click on this bottom item, View/Manage Award Related Personnel, and submit. The system will then pull up a screen of all the people who have access to your particular grant file. And here, for this particular system, this particular grantee, they have 3 people set up as recipient administrators. So any of these 3 people can make changes to an account in Grants Online for your organization. That person would need to go to this particular manual, the Recipient Administrator Reference Guide, and it will walk you through the steps that you need to know in order to modify the account of the person to allow them to have a submitting role. Again, we have actually walked through that in one of the previous videos, so we're not going to take time to walk through every step, but I do want to refer you to this particular guide, and you can get the information you need from there. Was there another question?
Yes. Who fills out the SF-270?
The SF-270, normally, it will be that business/financial person in your organization. Let's go back to, I'm sorry, I really want to go back to the grants file. It will be the person that would go into ASAP to actually draw the funds down. Normally, whoever deals with your finances, they should have access to an SF-270. SF means standard form. It's a standard form across the federal government. You can contact your project officer in EDA if you don't have the form itself, and they will refer to you where you can get a copy of that form. It's, I believe it's probably a fillable PDF, so you could keep a copy of it in your agency, in your grantee organization, and whenever you need to draw down some more money, you would just fill a copy out, save it with the information, and upload it into Grants Online using that award action request. Okay.
We also have an SF270 available on EDA's website if
on the EDA
people
website?
are interested. Yes,
Do you
it's
want
under. It's on.
Let me navigate there.
Okay.
And Bernadette, you can tell me where to go.
Go to Tools at the top.
Tools.
And select Grantee Information.
Right here.
And if you scroll down, about halfway down, you'll see standard or additional links. Right there is the SF270.
Right here on the EDA website. So you can always go here to pick up a copy of that form if you need it, if you don't have it on your page. And it is a fillable PDF, Bernadette?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. Yvette, any more questions?
How do you resubmit a rejected ASAP request?
Okay. So let me go to Grants Online. Bernadette, so if it actually gets rejected, it's not sent back to you for revision, but it actually gets rejected, you just have to go and submit start it from scratch, create a new one. So you would just go back.
Yeah, if it's rejected, you start a new one. If it's returned to you, then you need to modify the returned request, not start a new one.
So anything that is returned to you would show up under inbox and tasks. And I'm not going to go to this task box right now because there may be some task in there for the recipient as of last October, but you would go into the inbox tasks and you would see something in there waiting for you to work on if it was returned to you from EDA. If it was completely rejected by EDA and on the grants file, it would have a status here. Instead of approved, it would have a status of rejected. If that gets rejected, you would have to start the process from the beginning and just go to your grants file at the top, click on Create Award Action Request, submit, and then go to that link and start all over again from here. Okay?
Next one's probably going to be Bernadette specifically.
Okay.
Are there any guidelines to complete the tracking form for EDA?
Again, Bernadette, I'm not sure if you heard Yvette, but the question is, are there any guidelines to completing the tracking form for EDA?
The tracking form, not sure what the tracking form is.
So whoever submitted that question, we're going to ask you to clarify that, and we're going to move on, but we'll come back and check your question again because we're not exactly sure what you mean. So see if you can clarify your question a little bit more. Any other questions at this point?
How long will funds be available in ASAP for EDA awards that have closed?
Good question. The funds in ASAP should be available until this date right here. Final reports due on. This is the date not only for the final reports to be due, but it's also the date that funds close, that ASAP closes down for funds. So once this date is passed, you're no longer able to draw down funds from ASAP. Okay. That's it for now? Okay. All right, so let me let's look at submitting the progress reports. Let's talk about that. Oh no, I'm sorry. We didn't go over looking at workflow history. So let's take a look at workflow history. Where will we find it? There's no workflow history on the grants file in general. The grants file is a holding place for all the other actions that take place. But let's take a look at the award file 0, that first action that took place that produced a grant award that you needed to accept. Right underneath there, every award file will have a link that says workflow history. So if you click on workflow history, you will see from the grants officer to the recipient, to you, the recipient, you will see when those two actions took place. This is when the grants officer approved the award internally and sent it over to the recipient. And this is when the recipient accepted the award. One of the things I want you to notice is that this date, the date the grants officer completed their task, is not the same date as when it got into the recipient's inbox. And the reason for that is that after the grants officer signs off, there are still some more internal federal steps that this award goes through before it gets to the actual recipient, before it gets into the inbox of the recipient itself. And you can actually see that also in one of the process maps. Not quite sure if we have that one on your site here. No, we don't. Let's take a look at here. See if we can see it here. So electronic recipient acceptance. Let's look at that one. It should be the one at the bottom. So let me move this out the way. And scroll down here. I'm going to go to the last one. Okay, yes, this one will give you a sense of the various steps that we go through in the government between the time, I'm trying to move this thing out the way, between the time we sign the award, the grants officer signs the award right here, and the time it gets to the authorized representative down here. Notice after the grants officer approves the award file, it goes through a couple of steps here. It says CBS first approver, CBS second approver. That doesn't mean a lot to you guys, but what's going on is that there's a person in NOAA Finance, in the NOAA Finance office, that has to get into the CBS system, Commerce Business Systems. Remember, I told you that we do not automatically move data from our grants file into our financial system. So there are two people in NOAA Finance that get tasks in Grants Online, in their inbox in Grants Online, to tell them to manually enter our accounting codes from the grant system into the financial system, and then take the actions that they have to take place in our financial system to obligate those funds. Once they've done that, then if you are an ASAP recipient, there is some setup work that needs to be done. So there's a couple of ASAP steps. And in between that, there's another task that takes place, and that has to do with our legislative affairs group. So they get a preliminary information about the grant award before it comes to our authorized representatives. So that is why this date right here on your workflow, remember on the workflow, we have a date right here where the grants officer signs. That's this date right here where they approve the award file. But then it goes through all of these steps before it gets to the grants, the grantee. And so that's why this date is going to be different, the date that you get the task to accept the award. Anything?
Yeah.
Questions? Okay. Mm-hmm.
Let me just finish responding to this one.
Okay.
Okay, so that person about the tracking.
Yes, the tracking. Mm-hmm.
Responded and said the tracking form is an additional form spreadsheet that EDA requires recipients to complete when submitting ASAP drawdown requests.
So
okay.
I think Bernadette might understand. Bernadette, did you hear that?
Yes, I did. So for guidance on what is required for each of your drawdown requests, you're going to have to work with your project officer on that. Every EDA project officer has a specific way of how they want to receive information so that they can easily approve your request. And sometimes it varies by EDA program, sometimes it varies by person. It's different. So there's no EDA-wide guidance on that because unfortunately we do have a lot of nuances in all of our various grant programs that require different types of documentation. So just I would recommend that you work with your project officer on those requirements.
Okay. All right, any other questions? All right, good. All right, good. Let's just look at one other. I'm just going to take another item on the grants file just to look at its workflow history, just so that you can see that each document has its own workflow history. So here's the workflow history here. This particular action is approved, so there are no longer any steps for you to take as a grantee, so there's no blue drop-down box, but you can see what steps this went through. So this is a good example. This is one that started from a recipient user. They could not submit it directly to the recipient. They had to go first to their authorized representative, and that person was able to then forward it to the agency. They forwarded it to EDA. It goes to the person with the role of grant specialist. In this case, the grant specialist returned it back to the recipient. So they got it here, and then they did, their modifications, and they forwarded it back to the grant specialist. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned before, notice there's some comments here, right, that show up here. Those comments, and let me just use let me go here to the grants file. Whenever you are submitting something to the agency, you'll see something that has this blue box here that says your comments. Anything that you put into this blue box, this is included in the email that goes to the next person that's going to receive the task in Grants Online, and it is also included in the workflow history, as you see here. So it is, let me just click on this one more time. It is included in the workflow history user comments right over here to the far right. Okay, so that is a way to know where something is in Grants Online. If you're not sure where it is and you think you submitted something, but you don't know who has it or where it is, there's a lot of ways you can find out. So let's review that again. You can look on the grants file itself, and you'll see a status on the grants file. If you wanted more details, you can click on the ID and go to the workflow history, and you can see a more filled out workflow history as exactly what the actions were. Okay, so let's do this. I think I have another poll question. I'm going to go back to the grants file, and let's see. We are going to launch another poll, and let's do this one. We just talked about launch. All right, you have 1 minute to respond to this particular poll question, and let's see how many of you respond. It's sort of a it's sort of a trick question. I do want to say it is sort of a trick question, so I'm giving you that little hint right now. All right, we are at this point halfway through. It's 30 seconds down. Okay. We're at 45 seconds now, and 15 more seconds, and we'll go ahead and close out the poll. All right, we are now at 1 minute, so I am going to go ahead and close the poll. And only 1% had no idea, so that's good. At least I think I did a better job of explaining this time than I did last time. We have 80% of you said the workflow history section. That is correct. You can look at workflow history and find who has the current task. 16% of you said the grants file homepage. That's also a good answer. You can tell on the grants file homepage who has the task right at this moment in time. You can't tell the history, but you can see who has it right now. And then 2% of you said, I'm just going to call the Grants Online Help Desk. Well, the help desk knows too. So we can help you. However, hopefully from listening in on this webinar, you will be able to do more things on your own without having to call the help desk. So thank you. Good job on that one. All right, let's keep going. We have just about 30 more minutes, and we probably won't take the whole 30 more minutes, but let's go ahead and see if we can make sure that we hit all of our agenda items, and then we can open it up to additional questions and answers. All right, let's talk a little bit more about the closeout process. So one of the things we want to point out is that you will get reminders in Grants Online for your final progress reports, for your final financial reports, and not only your finals, but even the interim ones. If you want to know the schedule for those reminder notifications, I'm going to go back to our training page. Let me close out this process map. We're on the training page, and I'm going to scroll down on this page. And number 15 on the page right here is a chart. And if you open up that chart, it's a busy chart. Let's see, where do we open it up? Right here. Here it is, right here. Now, it's hard to read. It's a lot on it. So let me just see if I can make it a little bit bigger. But basically, it tells you PPR, your progress reports, your SF425s, of course, or your financial reports. And basically, you just need to look over here, the type of report, and these are the types of notices that we send out to you. So we send some advance notices before we even create a placeholder. We send out 2 notices in advance of the placeholder, just kind of letting you know that the progress report is going to be due fairly soon. Those notices come out approximately 6 weeks and 2 weeks prior to the end of the period, the reporting period. So prior to the end of the reporting period, we send out 2 notices. Then right when the reporting period ends and we create that placeholder, you're going to get another notice to let you know it's due now. It remains due for 30 days in Grants Online. Again, remember, this business process that I'm explaining to you is based on NOAA's business process. So there may be some changes in the future for EDA, but this particular schedule is set up according to NOAA's business process. So currently, once the reporting period is over, the system gives you 30 days before it changes the status from due to delinquent, okay? So it will be not delinquent during those 30 days. If you have not yet submitted the report after those 30 days, the status will change to delinquent, okay? Now, once it becomes delinquent, we are going to send out a couple more notices. Down at the bottom here, you see a delinquency notification and then an enforcement notification. So you get a couple more notices after those 30 days when it becomes delinquent. Please, if you have any questions or more detailed questions about this chart, you can submit the questions to the Grants Online Help Desk, and we will try to get back to you to explain in a little bit more detail about your notifications. But I do want to let you know that we do send out several system-generated notifications to remind you about your reports. Okay? All right. Another thing that's important to know, once you start going through the process, once this project period has expired and you are actually in that 90-day period between this date and this date, and you're starting to gather all of your last-minute invoices, pay everyone out, and then submit your final progress and financial reports, at that point, please pay attention to your ASAP drawdown requests. If you have any that you have submitted and they're sitting out there, and if you submit duplicates, it'll cause a delay in us being able to close out your award. So we need for you to just really pay attention to the request that you're submitting. Make sure you're not submitting duplicates. You can submit more than one request. I'm not quite sure why you would actually need to submit more than one at a time, but if you do submit more than one at a time, once you submit more than two, and maybe possibly more than one, I'd have to do a little bit more testing. Multiple requests will definitely delay our ability to close out your award. And so I just want to make sure that you are aware of that. It's best to submit these one at a time, have them approved, and then submit the next one. So don't wait till the last minute when you are ready to submit your final reports. Okay? Let's talk one more time. I think I skipped one thing on here when we were talking about submitting the progress reports. It says, don't forget the attachment. That's very, very important. So when you're submitting your progress reports, you know what I'm going to do is I am going to log off here, and I'm going to log back in as the NOAA user that I was using, because I have one that I can demonstrate submitting the progress reports. Okay, and we're going to, let's see, make sure I'm logging in. Okay, correct password. All right. I do want to show you this other feature. We've done it also again in a previous webinar, but under the awards tab, another way to look for your progress reports or your financial reports is search reports instead of the search awards feature. If you do search reports, and let's say we're doing progress reports, I'm going to click on this radio button that says progress reports. I want all of my delinquent and not delinquent reports. So anything that I've created a placeholder for, but I have not yet submitted it to the agency, bring all of those back for me. And that is for all of the awards that I process. So I'm going to click search. And I now, and of course, this is my training system, but look, I've got lots of progress, a mixture of regular progress reports and research progress reports. So I've got all the progress reports on all of my awards that have either status of delinquent. As you see, these have delinquent statuses. And then hopefully as I move down, I might find some. I'm not quite sure if I have any with non-delinquent statuses. Let me do this and move this over here. See if I can move this. Okay, let's move this over here. And let's go down this screen and just see if we have any. No, these all say delinquent. All right, so in our training system, they're all set up as delinquent. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pick one, and I'm going to go through the steps to submit that particular progress report. So let's do a regular progress report. I'll do this one right here. Hopefully that's something that I can submit. Okay, so first of all, here is the progress report page that I would use to do the submission, but I want to navigate back to the grants file. I just want you to see it on the grants file. Let's look at this particular grants file. This is a training one that we've done for class. We've got one progress report with the status of submitted, so we know that's been turned into the agency. It's being processed within EDA. It has not yet been accepted. And then we have another one here, another placeholder. This one is delinquent. That means that it is past the due date that is on the placeholder. I'm going to click on this, and there's no blue drop-down box with any actions for me to take. That's because there's no task, no workflow. You have to initiate it by clicking on the link. Once you click on the link, there's not really a lot that you need to do to submit your report, because the report is not, it's not created inside of Grants Online. A report is just something that you do on the side. However, instructions you were given by EDA to create your progress report, you create that report outside of the system. Once it's created, you would just come back into the system, use this attachment link, and choose whatever file you need to choose. I'm going to go to my documents and then just upload my test file. So here's my test attachment right here. So this is my test progress report. Make sure you click on Save Attachment. Once you've done that, you should see a record right here under Attachments that shows the name of the attachment, the description you gave it, and the create date. All right, if you do not see something that looks like this on your progress report screen, you have not uploaded an attachment. So make sure that you see your attachment there. That's really all that you have to do. At this point, you can now submit your progress report to the agency. You would do that by clicking Save and Start Workflow. You may get a pop-up, are you sure? And you say OK. Now, once you've done that, it has not yet been submitted directly to the agency. You still have to select Forward to Agency. Now, again, this particular user is set up with an authorized representative role, so they can forward directly to the agency. However, if the person who's filling this out is not the authorized representative, they're going to have an action that says Forward to Authorized Representative. There's a caveat here, just like for the financial report, where the business people can be set up to submit directly to the agency, the same thing can work for the PI, for the principal investigator or project director. Their account can be set up so that they can submit directly to EDA without going through their authorized representative. So again, use that same guidance document to help you set up that person so that they can do that. But in this case, we're going to just say Forward Progress Report to the agency. We're going to put a little comment here. Please see attached progress report for this reporting period. Period. There we go. Not a good speller. All right. If I click here, I should see the attachment that I loaded up on the previous screen. Okay. Now I can click on Submit. Okay. And I am now sending this progress report to the federal agency. If I click on my grants file here in my breadcrumb, I will now see that the status of that progress report that used to say delinquent has immediately changed to submitted. So immediately when you take an action, it changes the status of the progress report. For the progress reports, unlike for the award files or for the associated documents, we don't have any on this page, but unlike for the associated documents, when you submit it, you can see who has it. You can't see that on the grants file for the progress report. You would actually have to click on the progress report, go to workflow history, and you can see that you submitted it. You will not see the internal workflow for the progress report. But you do see here, remember I put the comments in? Here are my user comments. Okay, so they will show up here. They also show up on the email that went to my project officer. So that's my progress report, submitting the progress report. I believe I have a poll question on that one. So let me do that. Let me try to launch this poll question here. And what do we have? Let's see. Let's do this one. All right. What must you do before uploading your progress report? Okay. This is also sort of a trick question.
That trick requires thought.
It does require thought. So Yvette's saying it's not a trick question. It just requires thought. And so we'll say this is a question that requires thought. Not that the others didn't require thought too. But all right, 40 seconds so far. Okay, it's about 15 seconds left. Excuse me. You back? All right. Well, we just got a few more minutes. We want to make sure that you get as much of our time as we can give you. So we definitely apologize for that. Do you see the Grants Online screen right now?
No, I have to relaunch.
Okay. Bernadette, do you see the Grants Online screen with the progress report on it? Okay. All right. So again, we certainly apologize for that, but we went to Plan B. So we've got just a few more minutes, and we're going to finish out as much as we can. Just wanted to say on that last poll that most of you said add an attachment. That was probably the answer we were looking for, but some of you said click the save and start workflow, and that's indeed another correct answer. You do have to click save and start workflow before you can submit it. So both of those are the correct answer. You do not have to enter clarifying comments. The save button you can click on, but it's not going to do anything. It just stays on the page. So the two correct answers on that poll were add the attachment and click save and start workflow buttons. All right, so let's go ahead at this point and very quickly, I want to show you our what our new website is going to look like. Let me go over here. I want to go to our home page, and let's see. This is our website right here. We're going to start with this page right here. So this is going to be our main page. I've got it at a high resolution. Let me make it a little bit smaller. There we go. So that you can see a little bit more on the page. So this will be our new Grants Online page. Once we get it launched, we are, again, it's a NOAA page because we're on the NOAA URL. So it's going to have NOAA.gov in the URL. It's not going to be this one right here, but it will have NOAA.gov. You'll notice that we have a banner at the top, a NOAA banner. We are celebrating 50 years of NOAA, so we're not a very old agency. We haven't been around that long, but we're celebrating 50 years. So you'll see that banner on our NOAA pages. And then some information about some links, our mission, our customers. And right in the middle, we want to show you that indeed, even though this is a NOAA page, we do support multiple bureaus in the Department of Commerce and Grants Online. So you will see this particular image that has the various bureau logos. Okay, then on the right side, there's going to be various links, and the one that you're going to key in here is grant recipient user resources. And then on your page, we'll see, this is just a photo from actually an EDA grant. This particular grant had a focus group. And so we have a little information about that grant right here, and we are able to show that particular grant photo. So that's one of the things we want to feature on our website, on our new websites, are photos that actually stem from actual grant projects that are done in Grants Online. Okay, so from here though, you will find your grant recipient user manuals, several quick reference guides right here. Here's the administrator reference guide that we talked to before. On the old screen, it was number 15. On this one, we see it's number 3. Here's the guidance document just for those award action requests. So if you have to do a lot of those ASAP drawdown requests, here's a guidance document there. Again, that notification chart is right here. So all of the notifications that you're getting from Grants Online is that chart for the ones that are telling you when they're due. And then we have a section here, sample Grants Online notifications, so you should find that useful. It's just samples of the emails that you'll get from Grants Online. So again, I do want to point out that this is a NOAA website, but we support all of our users. These links on the left-hand side, those are NOAA specific, so you don't need to use those links unless you're curious about what's going on in NOAA. But I do want you to know that we are working on an updated page for you, and we should be launching this within the next month or so. All right, we have about 10 minutes left, and I do want to open this up for the questions and answers.
I can't see it anymore.
You can't see it?
Yeah, because I'm no longer, when we reconnected,
Yeah.
I'm no longer as an organizer. So
Let me make you let me make sure you're an organizer. All right, so let's let me just check again. I want to make sure that we can check your questions. Make you an organizer. Yes. All right. Yvette. All right. Any questions out there that we need to address? Let me go back to our Grants Online page right here.
Okay.
All right. Here's my Grants Online page. And I'm going back to a grants file and just sit on the grants file. All right, and we're just checking now. We're going through the questions and make sure that we can, we've addressed everything that's been answered. We're getting down to.
Yeah, pretty much everyone's saying that they can't hear. It was frozen.
Okay.
Let's see if there don't really appear to be any questions beyond that.
Okay. Well, hopefully we've answered a lot of.
Here's one.
It's a question. Okay.
On the new, what was the answer to the last poll? One person said that.
The answer to the last poll, there were actually 2 answers. So let me just pull it back up, just for myself, make sure that I'm looking at the right one. I think there's one more poll too that I didn't ask. The last poll was what must you do before uploading your progress report into Grants Online? There were actually 2 out of those 4 answers were correct. One of the correct answers was to add the attachment. The other correct answer was save and start workflow button, not just the main save button, but you need to save and start workflow. So both of those were acceptable answers. There is one more poll. Let me just go ahead and launch it. And as you guys are looking at this poll and responding to this poll, you could still also submit questions. Anything else?
Okay, on the new web page, how do we get to the screens where we file reports and draw down requests?
Oh, okay. This good question. The new web page does not replace the Grants Online system that we've been demoing. The new web page will replace the old training site. So this is our old training site, and it's basically the page that has our resource documents, our process maps, and our user manuals and things like that. So this is the page that is being replaced. It is not the Grants Online system. This is not being replaced. So you will submit your reports, progress, and financial reports exactly the same way as before. The new site, again, replaced our training page, our training resources. Okay. Any other questions?
No more right now.
All right. So we are going to go ahead and close out our poll here, our final poll. And how do you know when a progress report has been successfully submitted? Most of you did say the status was submitted, and that is correct. The status will be submitted. Some of you said the status is accepted. That is also a good answer. That's actually after it's submitted and EDA has accepted it. So that's actually the second status after you've successfully submitted it. But the successful submission is indicated by a status of submitted. Okay, very good. Well, this is it, guys. There's 5 minutes left. We'll be able to give you 5 minutes back of your time. And we definitely appreciate you participating in the webinar. Again, we apologize for our technical difficulties there a few minutes ago, but we hope you found this to be useful materials in using helping you to use Grants Online more efficiently. Bernadette, anything else you'd like to say before we finish up, before we close it out?
Nope, that was it. Thank you, everyone, for participating. And As I mentioned before, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.